You're now listening to episode 114 of the Real Estate CPA podcast.
Your source for all things real estate, accounting, and tax. Here we reveal our secrets that can save you thousands in taxes, streamline your accounting process, and help grow your business. Stay tuned to hear insightful interviews with industry experts, successful real estate investors, and current clients on what strategies they use to grow their business and how they steer clear of Uncle Sam.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. Brandon Hall and Thomas Castelli joined here today with Vince Gethings, founder of Villanautics LLC and co-founder of Tri-City Equity Group LLC. Over the last 7 years, Vince has built a multifamily portfolio and owns and operates over 20 units in his personal portfolio, an additional 52 units as part of a joint venture, and just syndicated his first 48-unit property as a general partner. In today's episode, we discuss the challenges Vince faced closing a 48-unit apartment building at the height of the COVID-19 shutdown and how he had to change his business plan as a result. We also touch on property management tips, process improvements, and more. Hey, Vince, thanks for taking the time to come on the show today. Would you be able to give our listeners a little information on your background and how you got involved with real estate?
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. So my name is Vince Gethings. I'm active duty Air Force. I've been in the military for 14 years, serving active duty. I got into real estate in around 2013. I bought my first live-in flip using the VA home loan benefit, which is absolutely essential if you're in the military and you want to start growing wealth. That is the best ticket you have is your VA home loan. So that's what I did. Live-in flip with that. Sold it about 2016-ish. Took the capital from that, which was all tax-free. No capital gains tax on that. And rolled that into real estate. I wanted to do passive income. At the time, all I knew was bigger pockets and read Brandon Turner's book. So I got into okay, I'm going to buy a bunch of small multifamily properties, the duplexes, fourplexes. I did that for about 2 years. I got up to about 20 units in my personal portfolio all by myself. And then I kind of hit this really hard plateau or wall or whatever you want to call it. My systems were at the end of their rope. My bandwidth was tapped out, and I knew I needed to do something, but I just didn't know what it was. But I could see these other guys like David Tupin and stuff like that, just absolutely crushing it. I'm like, I'm missing something. What am I missing? And that's when I went out and got more education, joined a mastermind group, figured out all the things I was doing wrong and could be doing better. And within 6 months, I was under contract on a 52 unit. Closed that with a JV, and then a little under a year later, we just closed a 48-unit value-add property in El Paso, which I think we're going to talk about here in a little bit, during the height of coronavirus, or hopefully it was the height of coronavirus, April of 2020. And that's where we're at now. Now we're just looking for more deals and continuing to scale our business.
Awesome. That's always great to hear. So before we dive into the syndication, I did want to get your take on it. Along the journey of doing the personal portfolio, the JV, and now syndication, have you been able to ascertain yet? Has there been any returns? Has there been returns better? Has there been a better return on one of those strategies than the others?
Definitely not the doing it by yourself. That was probably the worst because you just end up doing like everything. Jake Stenziano, one of my mentors, he always calls it like the I'm a mentality, because when you're doing it by yourself and you're doing those small deals, like you don't have enough cash flow to afford, high quality people, even if it's like virtual assistants or anything like that, or for you, like a CPA, like I couldn't have afforded a good CPA based off that because the cash flow wasn't there with those small multifamilies. And I'm just doing everything. I'm doing the bookkeeping. I'm doing all the contracts and everything, plus also trying to grow. So by yourself, probably the worst way. My favorite way is JVs, just because there's less moving parts. So if you can do a JV and those type of partnership structures, I like those just because you don't have that extra few layers of investor relationships, SEC filings, and all those different layers. Syndication was a whole lot of fun. Definitely made me a better investor. Definitely added a whole different level of commitment to what I do, because I am a fiduciary now. So it's not just my money on the line. It's all these other people's money, and they're trusting me to do the right thing and to know what I'm talking about. So that was a whole extra level of experience that I had to develop and skills I had to develop as well.
So if you had to say which, going forward, are you going to, you're pretty much done with the personal portfolio. You're sticking with the JVs and the syndications, basically.
I think so. I don't think I'm going to be looking at anything by myself. There are those occasional one-off, like right now, and I'm doing like a few fix and flips in Michigan because the opportunity came up. They had a big flood, and they're selling properties there, 30 cents on the dollar. So pick up a couple of those, have my contractor flip them, throw on the market, but that's not necessarily a long-term business strategy for me. It's just one-off deals. But yeah, for my personal portfolio or my business, we're going to be doing JVs, partnerships, and syndications primarily.
Nice. So, shifting gears a little bit to the syndication, it was your first syndication, 48-unit apartment complex that you closed on in April, which is, of course, in the height of COVID-19, the shutdown. How did that affect, the business plan you had going in? Like, just how did COVID impact you in that deal?
Oh, that was very exciting. So we put in full context of the picture here. So I believe we found that in February. I think we went under contract. We were ready to close in March. And that's when, when we went into contract, it was like kind of COVID was this thing over, it just started happening here in the bigger cities, nothing really crazy, no shutdowns or anything like that. And then like end of March hit, and we're like the 11th hour getting ready to close. And all of a sudden, like the country like shuts down. So up to that point, our underwriting was fine. We do the C class, value add, reposition to maybe like a C plus, a B minus, your typical value add strategy. And that's what we were going in. So we underwrote for those type of expectations and those type of returns and assumptions. And at the end of March, we had to have a meeting with the general partners, and we had to pretty much scrap everything we've done for like the last 2 months. We just like dragged it, dropped it in the trash can, and completely started over with all of entirely new set of underwriting assumptions and guidelines. And not being an expert and not trying to be, because again, fiduciary, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I make the best financial decisions to preserve my capital, my investors' capital. Rule number one, preserve the capital. So I went out and I talked to a bunch of people that are way more high level than me, people with thousands of units under their belt, and I was kind of a nerd about it, and I created a spreadsheet, and each column I put whatever their predictions were or whatever their new underwriting assumptions were, things like 0 additional income for the next 12 months, 0 rent growth, or even if you're in if you're getting a premium on rent, like a negative 10% rent growth for the next 12 to 18 months, things like 25, 30% economic vacancy for the next 12 to 24 months. Lender required reserves, anywhere from 6 to 18 months. So I went down and each person I talked to, I filled out this column of what they were seeing from the things in their portfolio and what they were predicting going forward from their advisors. And then I just averaged it out. And then we built an entirely new pro forma based off of these people that probably had 10,000 units under the belt, been in the game for probably combined, 100 years or so worth of experience, and built entirely new pro forma. And we decided that the deal wasn't going to work at that point. We went and told the sellers, like, look, we are so far apart now. I don't think we can make this work. We voted, and we gotta pull out of the deal. It's like, again, 11th hour. We're supposed to close in like 2 weeks because everything that was going down, we just went into like countrywide shutdown, right? And then that was on Friday, and then we spent the whole weekend trying to figure out, okay, how can we make this deal work, right? We told them we broke the whatever bad news to them, but then we're like, okay, there has to be Hail Mary here. There has to be something we can do. Spent the whole weekend trying to figure out what we can do. And on Monday, set up a call again with the brokers and try to figure, okay, we spent all weekend. This is what we can do. We need I don't remember what it was, like a $130,000 seller credit to move forward. And we ended up getting $90,000 credit at closing. So $90,000 credit at closing, which kept us well capitalized going into closing, which roughly equated to between the $90,000 plus the money we had already raised, somewhere around 18 to 20 months of pity reserves in cash at closing. So that made us feel very, very good. We can sleep well at night knowing that we can weather a very, very long storm with that type of capital and liquidity going into closing. Yep. And then we closed, and our property manager is absolutely crushing it there. We're already in with our revised underwriting we did. He's already rounding like the 20th month line of our pro forma. So he's already in like 2-year KPIs and returns. And we're in this thing for like 4 months. So he is absolutely crushing it.
It's quite the comeback story there. So talk to me about, you said you're buying C properties and you're trying to make them C plus B minus properties. How has COVID affected your, I guess, physical and economic vacancies so far? And do you expect that to change, especially now that the unemployment benefit has been cut?
Yes, all of it. So one thing that, again, another learning piece for me out of this whole thing is when I'm looking at markets before, I didn't really pay attention to the politics of a state or an MSA or a city or anything like that. I look at all the other metrics everybody else does, like crime, landlord friendly laws, things like that. But I never really looked at what the governor's policies are. And now I do a lot because I have 2 portfolios that are almost identical. I have one in Michigan and one in Texas. And they couldn't be performing any further apart right now. Texas, absolutely crushing it. Like I said, we're rounding our 2-year, our year 2 in our pro forma that we built for this deal, this reposition. We're already on the 2nd year in 4 months. Michigan is like treading water to stay alive because of the politics there and what the governor has done and how everybody reacted to what the government has done there. So I would say there's no blanket thing you should do. It's gonna vary dependently on what your local government does, what your governor does, your mayor does, because my economic vacancy in Michigan right now is probably like, I don't know, 23, 24% right now. And a lot of that is like 5 or 6 people that have just stopped paying since like May, and I can't do anything about it.
So how are you handling?
They're not May. March. Like
how are you handling that?
There's not a whole lot you can do. We're staying really, as far as the people that are getting waiting to be evicted, we're keeping track. We're sending letters, and there was a point where we couldn't even send letters because that was like pressuring them. So we couldn't post the things on the doors. We couldn't do the door hangers. We couldn't pressure people during this crisis to make it worse. So we literally couldn't even like approach the tenant about, hey, you stopped paying us for like 4 months. We could. So right now what we're doing is we're tracking the balances very closely. We're tracking the laws on when the courts are going to open. They tried doing some Zoom court hearing things and judgments that didn't work because they didn't show up. And then they're like, okay, well, we'll reschedule in 2 weeks for a live session. So I was like, what was the point of the Zoom one anyway? But anyway, yeah. So we're paying very close attention to what the courts are doing, what the governor's doing. Are they going to lift the moratorium? They have some programs there. It's called the Eviction Diversion program. So that is something that's supposed to soften the blow to landlords if the residents has stopped paying, it's some kind of deal you cut with the state, and they pay off a portion of what the balance due is. I am, I don't know, optimistically skeptical on that program just because it's a government program and probably is not going to benefit me, but we'll be there. Our lawyers are on top of it, and they're going to do everything they can to recoup some of those funds. As soon as they lift the moratorium, all the bad actors that took advantage of the program, they're going to be evicted, and we put new people in there. The frustrating part is that the market, like many parts in the country, is still extremely hot. So we have waiting lists of people trying to move in to my properties, and we can't move them in because the bad actors that are just sitting there waiting and playing the game of whatever the local politics were and policies for the eviction moratoriums and stuff like that. We're Texas, completely different story, absolutely crushing it, getting market rents, sometimes even premiums on some of the units that we rehab nicely, and they have like a 3-day eviction process, so it's pretty awesome.
So going through this experience with your Michigan properties, how is your strategy going to change going forward?
In Michigan, I'm probably going to be looking for nicer class products. So inside Michigan, that's like kind of 2 portfolios inside there. I have like a B class portfolio product, and then I have like the C class. The C class has definitely been hurt a lot more than the B class. So if I am going to stay in Michigan, I am going to go for a higher class asset. Absolutely.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I know you mentioned property management does play a key in it. When it comes to property management, is there a way, have you been able to identify a good property manager from a bad property manager? Have you been able to separate that yet?
I'm working on it. So I have 3 right now that I work with, and the biggest traits of the ones that are more successful, or the KPIs are showing that they're more successful, is the ones that are willing to learn new processes, versus the ones that this is how it's done. This is how, I do it. That stuff doesn't work here. When you start hearing things like that, like you can't do a rub here, you can't do move-in fees here, huge red flag for me. I'm going to probably not go with you, rather than the one that's like, wow, I've never seen that. How does that work? Right? If you're bringing up something like a rub or something like that, and that is the type of response you get, that's somebody I want to work with. But that's mainly the biggest one, is willing to learn and listen to you as the owner to implement new processes or try new things. The other one is the ones that are willing to jump on the weekly pulse checks and not hum and haw and complain about it. That is a huge thing for me. That is probably one of the best things we've ever done, is one, set standards, set the KPIs and the expectations, the key performance indicators, but then also couple that with a weekly meeting, same time, same place. We do it on Zoom, and they know, rounding out Thursday, Friday afternoon, that on Monday, they're going to jump on a call and they're going to have to go over these metrics: vacancy, balance due, delinquency, all the lease expirations, things like that, all the CapEx projects that are in work. So they're going to, either work them or come up with an alibi or something of what the status is on these, because we're going to talk about it. There's going to be a sheet right in front of us that says, what's up with the windows, what's up with the stairs, what's up with this, unit 104 turn or something like that. And we're going to go over each one. So we're a normal property manager, they're just going to go weeks without talking, sometimes even months without talking to the owners, in a lot of cases. And that's very detrimental to executing a business plan.
Property managers that are open to changing the way they operate at the direction of the owner are on your list of being one of the better property managers that you actually want to work with. How do you actually go about influencing that change to get the results you want?
Got it. So the best thing we've done is get the property managers to think and act like owners. And the best way to do that is incentivize them to think and act like owners by paying them like owners. So what we do is on all of our property management contracts, we create a structure where they get bonuses if they reach certain KPIs. And that has been by far the best incentive to get property managers to start thinking and acting like an owner, is incentivizing them. So that's one way. Another way is if the deal is big enough and they have the means, make them partners. Because the more fish you can align swimming in the same direction on a property, it's going to be beautiful. If you get your property manager in on the deal with you, they're going to be looking at that NOI a lot more closely than if they were just looking at whatever fee income is based off of, their gross rents. They're not going to care about the expenses because they get paid off of gross rents collected. So by adding things like, if you hit a NOI of whatever it is, 35,000 for this quarter, or 100,000 for this quarter, you will get a 1% bonus or something like that. And same thing, if economic vacancy stays above 90% for this quarter, you get a 1% bonus. So adding those KPIs in there really gets them to start thinking of keeping units rented with, and I said economic vacancy, not regular vacancy, because economic vacancy is the people there need to be paying as well. So not just keeping the vacancy low, but keeping it low with people that are paying on time every month. So that's one, to make sure that they're vetting the applicants properly, and they're not just lowering standards just to keep the occupancy up. And the other one is the NOI. Notice I didn't say the revenue needs to be, the rent collected needs to be at 100,000. It's the NOI needs to be at 100,000, because that's going to make them think about the expenses a lot more. They're going to be looking at who they're contracting jobs out to, what the utility bills are and stuff like that. Like all these things that add up, they're going to be paying attention to that a lot more, because that's going to eat up the NOI. So we set those NOI targets in there. So incentivizing property managers by setting KPIs and giving them bonuses if they reach those performance metrics. And then also the next level of that would be making them partners. Cut them in on the equity is probably the ultimate way to make sure everybody is aligned. And not only will that work for the property management and the execution of your business plan, that is going to really add a lot of confidence to your investors to show that the property manager is aligned, their interests are aligned with you and them, and the lender. They're going to want to see that if the property manager is on the deal with you, they're on the GP, they're going to know that everybody is aligned and going in the same direction, where people aren't there just to get their fee income and they could care less what happens to the property and everything else below the line. They just want their fee income. So keeping everybody aligned and incentivizing them that way is the best way I have for that.
If you incentivize net operating income, does that encourage property managers to cut costs or cut corners? Like if I am a property manager and I know that there's this one guy or this one company that does great repair work, and I know that if I repair it one time, I'll never have to worry. You as the owner will never have to worry about it again. But that guy costs 3 times as much as this other cheaper contractor. But I know that if I do that, you're gonna have to repair it again. But I might even be out of the picture in a few years when you have to repair this again anyway. And this is going to boost today's NOI. Do you think that the net operating income actually could disincentivize, or how do you guard against that disincentive?
It absolutely could, and that's a great point. Though the way that we have made sure that we have the redundancy there to make sure that stuff is mitigated as much as possible is one, we have the weekly pulse checks. So every week, if we start seeing repeats and recurs, meaning, they fixed the plumbing at this one unit 3 times in the last month or something like that, or a couple of weeks, like the same problem keeps coming up. The questions gonna be asked, like, who are you sending out there? Is this person even licensed to do, what they're doing, or did you just pick somebody off the street to go work on the wiring or plumbing, right? So that's one thing, is the KPIs, and we can track, or we'll be able to find repeat recurs if the same problems keep coming up. The other one is the bigger contracts. When you're talking about contractors, is one of our partners, one of the hats he wears is project management. So he's the project management, director, and that's his job, is to get 3 bids for every job, vet them all, make sure they're all licensed and insured and all registered with, the Better Business Bureau or something like that. And they all have some kind of credibility and some way to track their reputation. And then also going through the scope of works, comparing apples to apples, questioning, okay, this person has a 5-year warranty and you're only offering a 1, what's up with that? And stuff like, or the materials being used was a big one. We did a parking lot recently, and I learned a whole bunch about parking lots, but one of the things was, what type of sealant are they using? What type of the crack seal? What type of machinery are they actually using to lay this stuff? So all of that stuff comes into play. And that's one of the hats that our partner Matt wears, is he's the project management guy. So he's working hand in hand with the property manager to vet all of these bids as well, just to add that extra layer of, or not, I won't say layer, but extra set of eyes on a project, just to make sure that we do our due diligence. Again, fiduciaries for our investors. So we owe it to our investors to make sure when we go out and get a bid that's for a project that's going to cost $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, that, we're getting multiple bids. We're vetting them, the contractors. We're vetting the materials going to be used, to make sure we don't have repeat recurs and wasted money because they did a shoddy job. So that's what we do. I don't know if you know a better way, but I'm open to learn.
No, I can't say that we have a better way. I do want to ask a few more questions that kind of along the lines of operations, right? So, I know you are a green belt, lean Sigma green belt. So I have a question about that in a second, but are you able to determine operational? So when you buy a multifamily property, there's, deferred maintenance and, bring the market to rent, rental, to the current market conditions to rent that at a higher rate. But then there's also the operational side of it too, that sometimes you could reduce expenses and just do things better to minimize costs. Are you able to determine that up front during due diligence, or is that something that you generally only find out after you're operating the property?
I know, for me at least, I have a pretty good idea when I'm building my pro forma and I'm vetting a property out during due diligence, what I can do. So for me, I'm huge on operational efficiencies. Hence the Lean Six Sigma thing is I spend a lot of time knowing the market, talking to other property managers, talking to other investors in there, and really like narrowing down how much insurance per door is, how much I should calculate for, I don't know, waste management and stuff like that, water bills and stuff like that. And then once I get those numbers really, really zoned in, I can look at a OM that a broker sends me. And if I know my, expense per door for a C-class product in this side of this town and this market is, I don't know, $3,500 or $3,600, and they're showing me like $4,200, like I'm seeing like dollar signs. I'm like, okay, there's some, efficiencies to be had. So then I go in and I go line by line and try to figure out where's the waste. And a lot of it's just glaringly obvious. I'm not putting on my, my sleuth hat there and my magnifying glass and like looking for pennies to save. It's usually like they're paying the maintenance man on salary like $100,000 a year or something like that, plus a car, and it's like a 50-unit apartment complex. So it's like, okay, switching to offsite management, boom, just boosted the NOI $100,000 a year or something like that. So a lot of it's pretty obvious. I look for like a lot of things that people overlook or just get complacent with is like utility bills. They just, okay, that's the utility bill, and they just pay it, and they don't look at like, hey, when's the last time you checked your water consumption compared to, a similar size property? You're like 30% over. When's the last time you changed like water shutoff valves and toilet valves and stuff like that? Oh, never? Okay. First order of business, swap everything that water comes out of, the toilet valves, the shutoff valves, the everything with, new stuff, because they're probably leaking, and drop your water consumption, 20, 30% instantaneously. Which is going to, add right to your NOI, boost the property up. So that's a lot of the things I look for. And and there's contracts. A lot of property managers, especially like the ones we target, the more on the unprofessional side, the mom and pop side, that they have a contract from 2000 that has just been increasing steadily over the last 20 years, and they never thought to go back and renegotiate, what the waste service company is charging for the dumpsters. They never looked at a competitor. It's just, it's in place, just leave it alone. And then I can make one phone call with a direct competitor in town and cut the waste management bill in half or something like that. So those are a lot of things I look for when I'm looking at properties. As far as the income side, there's so many tools out there like Rentometer and stuff like that, or apartments.com if you just want a secret shop and just figure out, okay, I'm in this side of town with a 2-unit apartment with these amenities, this type of finish or rehabs, they're getting whatever per square foot, or if you make it easier, like $625 a unit, and they're at $550. There's a good chance you can probably at least get $600 if you just start looking at the apples to apples comparison of what that market has or that neighborhood has.
That makes a lot of sense. So kind of looking at could you just I'm curious, I got to be honest, about the Lean Six Sigma process improvement.
Yes.
What exactly is that, and how has it helped you in the multifamily business?
All right. So I got that in the Air Force. So the Air Force has continuous process improvement, their brand of Lean. And it's a set of tools that helps you identify waste in processes and go through and systematically improve them, cut out the waste, make everything more streamlined, more efficient. And there's a ton of tools out there. If you're interested, there's probably a bunch of free courses now. You can probably go on YouTube and watch a bunch of videos on how to lean out your processes. But that's mainly what it is probably around 20 different tool sets that you can use, or questioning techniques, or things to dissect processes to identify waste. The big, more popular ones, let me think, like the Pareto Analysis, like the 80-20 principle, right? So going down and trying to figure out, okay, where's, the 20% of your actions are going to achieve 80% of your results. Well, that flips in the waste world is, 80% of your waste in time consumption and money is going to be off 20% of your processes that are inefficient. So you just flip that around and it works that way too. So you're going to go through and dissect it, like, okay, what am I wasting my time on that I shouldn't be? And a lot of us people, like, especially now, do that just without putting a name to it. And that's how we find things like, okay, I'm wasting way too much time on, bookkeeping. I'm going to go find a virtual assistant because this isn't revenue generating. This isn't building my business. So I'm going to offload this task to a virtual assistant. So a lot of people do this stuff. They just don't do it, consciously with the process, like a systematic process in mind. They just know that, okay, I'm wasting my time here, and they figure out ways to cut it out. So the Lean, I don't do a whole lot of Six Sigma. So it's a lot of 5S and a lot of Lean processes of just going through and systematically trying to find waste and ways to increase processes. And there's a bunch more. There's like spaghetti diagrams and pick charts and all this other stuff I love to nerd out about, but it's very, very helpful.
That's good to hear. I might have to take a deeper look into that. So what's next? What's next for you?
I'll give you an example here. So hold on, I see this. Brandon has a printer over his right shoulder about 10 feet behind him. That means every time he prints something out, he needs to stand up, walk across the room, pick it up, come back across the room, and sit down at his desk and look at it, right? So if you add that up over a month, how much time is spent walking back and forth that 10 feet rather than just taking that little desk and moving it to like right next to him to where he can just lean over and grab it. So that's something, it's so simple, but just looking at, and that would be a spaghetti diagram that you would do to figure that out, where you just, you draw a picture of your office and you draw lines back and forth every time you have to get up and leave your desk to go do something. And then by the end of like one process, you're like, it looks like spaghetti on a paper, and you're like, wow, that's a lot of just time and transportation waste and movement waste, when I can just move this printer right next to me and save all that time. So it's all these little things that if you look at each one of your processes and look at them with that lens, you're going to just start cutting out waste, and it just adds up. If you save 2% here and 3% here, by the end of that process, by the end of that month or that year, you've saved hours and hours and hours of just time waste and transportation waste. Unless he likes getting his steps in, I don't know.
No, I prefer to sit here and do absolutely no movement.
No, I mean, this is very interesting stuff. So I'm, for sure, just very interesting. But kind of circling back to the future for you and your business, the multifamily business. What's next? Are you going to do another syndication, JV? Are you sitting idle right now, kind of waiting to see how everything pans out in the market?
We're actively looking for new deals. I don't think, like my view of syndication or JV or partnerships, a lot of people think it's like a kind of like a pyramid, and like a fund or syndications like on the top of this pyramid. And funds are really cool. I'm definitely going to spend a lot of time learning about those. But to the question is, I don't see them as like a pyramid. I think of it just tools in a tool belt. So when I do find a deal, I'm going to ask, okay, how can I close this deal the easiest way? And sometimes it's syndication because maybe it requires a huge capital outlay that I just don't have. So I'm going to need to, raise those funds. And then syndication will be the tool I use to close that. Or if I find a smaller deal, maybe I find a B class 20 unit where I was like, okay, that's a nice area town, B class, maybe B plus, something like that. And like, I could probably close that with a JV, and way easier than syndication. And just do that, a JV or a partnership or something like that to close that. So whatever deal I come across that fits my model, my business plan, I'm just going to go with the best tool to close that deal. Probably syndication.
That makes a lot of sense. So what's just kind of a follow-up question to that too is, when it comes to syndication, I guess you're not looking at syndication as like a must, like you're not looking at like, I have to do a deal. You're more or less, you're just looking for deals. And when the deal comes across, you're saying if syndication makes sense, you go ahead and do the syndication. You're not like forcing deals to happen.
Exactly. And that is a huge thing that investors need to watch out for. Because, I mentioned before being a fiduciary, because what happens if you have that need to close a deal or find a deal, you start bending your criteria, you start bending your KPIs, you start bending your minimums in order for a bad deal to start working. And then you're really taking that fiduciary hat off, and you're putting your capital and your investors' capital, more importantly, at risk. So, if the deal comes and it works and it's going to meet our business plan and provide our investors a good return, we'll do a syndication. If it's a little bit more risky, I'm like, hey, this is going to be a little bit more risky play. Maybe we're doing we're buying a distressed property that has a lot of variables, a lot of moving parts. I'd be much more comfortable closing that with a partnership with my money at stake rather than an investor's funds. So I guess the lesson there is, so we're always looking for deals, but we're not going to, bend our criteria in order to make a deal work.
Gotcha. And one question on taxes, we do have to ask the tax related question, of course. On these deals you do, are you using cost segregation study and 100% bonus depreciation, and why or why not?
Absolutely. Because you told me to. No. So no, I met Boomer. Everybody, I think most people in the industry know Boomer, right? So I met Boomer at an event like 2 years ago, and just totally blew me away with his presentation. And I was like, we got to do that. And we did it on 2 deals now, and it's been absolutely amazing to do cost segregation, 100% bonus depreciation. Why we still have it, right? It's getting phased out unless something new has happened. So maybe 1031 will be popular again in a few years.
Yeah, I think we're looking at 2022 for the phase out of 100%. It's kind of slides down 20% each year until 2026. So, if you're going to take advantage of it, you might as well take advantage of it now. So what would be the best way for our listeners to learn more about you and what you have going on?
Got it. So the social media site we have is the Honolulu Multifamily and More. It's the Multifamily and More chapter that Jamie Gruber started from Michigan. We run the Honolulu chapter of that. So Facebook, Honolulu Multifamily and More. If you just want to get part of our Facebook group, social media group, we do meetups and everything on there, Facebook Lives and stuff like that. If you want to go to our website to actually meet us, see what we do, it's tricityequity.com. And you can go there, mess around, look at all the projects we have, all the past ones we've done. My partner, Duke, spent a bunch of hours. He wrote a passive investing guide. He threw it up there for free. So if you want to know, the difference between a active multifamily investor and a passive multifamily investor, specifically talking about syndication, being in a GP side or an LP side, that gives you a bunch of information and a lot of questions. And then also if you decide to be on the LP side, the passive side, he has a ton of questions and a ton of information on how to vet operators, how to vet markets, how to look at, things like PPMs and stuff like that, how to look at the KPIs, expected returns, pro formas from the lens of a passive investor to make sure that you're vetting operators properly and that investment meets your goals. So kudos to him. He spent a lot of time and energy on that. So you can go get that. It's free, tricityequity.com.
All right. Well, Vince, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show today. It was amazing having you on, learned a lot. I'm going to have to look into some lean processes and also check out tricity.com, check out that passive investor guide. So thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed the show, please find us on iTunes and leave us a review. You can also email us at contact@therealestatecpa.com with any feedback or topic suggestions. We are always taking on new clients, and with the new tax laws in play, you really don't want to navigate this alone. Let us help you save money on taxes and with your accounting and CFO needs. To become a client, navigate to our client page at therealestatecpa.com and fill out a web form with as much detail about your situation as possible. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great rest of your week.